Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It is WNBA season time. That means it's time to do the season preview. I've listed things put together by my friend, same friend that puts together all my graphics, all my thumbnails, so her stuff is linked below. And we're going to get right into it. I'm really excited for this. So, first, I'm going to talk about the Phoenix Mercury and the additions they have in Natasha Cloud, Kalea Copper, and just talk about their expectations for this year. And I think it's very interesting because this is kind of, you assume it's the last few years of Diana Taurasi, even though she doesn't seem to want to retire anytime soon. I think she has like a 2-year deal. And this is kind of like, we're going to try to get her a championship, right? And we're going to put together the best team possible. So they went all in. They had some draft picks. They traded them for Kalea Copper. They signed Natasha Cloud in the offseason, brought back Brittany Griner. So now they got a pretty good roster. I think it's a roster that can compete. I don't know if I'd put them with like New York or Las Vegas, of course. You know, I don't know if I put them in those top two teams, but they're definitely in the, we are going to be a playoff team and we're going to have a shot at a championship and we're going to give these teams a really hard time. So I think it's a pretty good move because it doesn't have to be just a this year thing. I think Natasha Cloud might be 1-year deal, but Kalea Copper got extended 2 years, so you got her for 2 years. Diana Taurasi 2 years. Brittany Griner's a 1-year deal, but I assume if she's going to keep playing, it's going to be for Phoenix. I think you just assume that just because she's made it clear that it's home. And I think my expectations for them is to make the semifinals. I think that has to be the ceiling. Like, if you can't make it there, I think all the resources you put in, it's kind of a failure. So, I think going all in makes sense in this era, especially if you have an aging player like Diana Taurasi, who's been in the league for so long. And this is kind of like your last chance. Why not go all in, right? You don't really need to focus on developing young players, especially with how short the rosters are and all that. So, go all in and trade these picks away and get talent that you know will help you win out. And you know Kalea Copper is going to help you win out. She's been a Finals MVP. You know Natasha Cloud is going to help you out because her performance in the playoffs, putting that Washington team on her back and making it like a tough series. I think they played New York. Just like really, really impressive stuff, you know. She's a really, really good player. She's older, but she shows that she's still playing at a high level, which is all you want, really all you want. And now I'm gonna move over to Chicago, right? Kind of a new era in Chicago, primarily with Teresa Witherspoon coming in, right, as a head coach, and I really loved her attitude, and I just love watching, listening to her press conferences. And just talk about, like, she got a passion for the game, man. She came over from assistant coaching the Pelicans, and now she's here, and you could tell she just got a fire within her. She loves to win, man. And I think she's going to establish a culture in Chicago, which I think was perfect. Although it sucks to trade away Copper to Phoenix, you're kind of rebuilding from scratch, building a new culture from the ground up. You still have your veterans like Dana Evans. You have Izzy Harrison, right? You got Elizabeth Williams. And so you have a foundation of veterans, but at the same time, now you get the young guys in. You get Cardoso with the 3rd overall pick out of South Carolina, and Angel Reese for the 7th overall pick out of LSU. And you have this future vision of like two elite bigs as your front court, and it's like the defense has the highest ceiling you could ever have, right? And then you bring Diamond DeShields back also for leadership, and you're just building this culture of, okay, we got young guys coming up, and we're gonna build this team from the ground up, but at the same time working on that culture. So I mean, they could be decent now, right? You got enough balance of young, elite talent who's gonna make an impact day one, and veterans. I'm not saying that they're gonna like make a deep run, but if they made the playoffs last year, I don't see why there can't be at least a shot for them to be one of those teams at the end trying to make a run for it. So I think it's gonna be really entertaining. It's gonna be really interesting to see how they're gonna work the lineups starting out, how Teaspoon's gonna do that. As we saw in the preseason game, I think Izzy was hurt, so I feel like she might start, and they might do her and Ewell, which is kind of what I saw with them starting Ewell at the 5 and Angel at the 4, because I feel like you might start Izzy at the 4 when she's healthy, and just have Angel and Camilla get rotational minutes in it, which I don't know if that's what I would do, but like I see why you would do it maybe. But again, this is just one preseason game, so who knows what she's going to do. But you have like pieces in the front court to have a strong, heavy rotation. And it makes sense why you move on from players like Ruthie and players like that, because you got such a solid front court. And now you get these two young players. And you also get Marina Mabry back another year. And I just think the ceiling might not be high, but I think the floor is pretty high for this team. And I'm excited to see how they work everything out. Now we're going to switch over to the Indiana Fever. And a lot of the discourse about the Indiana Fever is Caitlin Clark coming over. And I think an important piece is Aaliyah Boston's already there. And she took this team that was a bottom team for a while. And she almost willed them to the playoffs, right? And I feel like that's hard to people lose that a lot because they got the number one overall pick. But they were like the last team out, right? Them and the Sparks. So they were really, really competitive, right? And they just won the lottery because there's just few teams in the lottery. And so they get number one pick again. They have Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. And we watched them play the first game against Dallas, and Caitlin Clark started shooting well. We've seen practice footage where this pick and roll could be really scary. I mean, you got to pick your poison with Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark. And I don't know if I'd pick them as a playoff team this year. Maybe I do, right? But you have a foundation to make a really good team because you got solid players around. Lots of depth in the guard spot, I think. But I feel like that duo has a chance to be like a top duo in the league very, very soon. Maybe not immediately because you have pick whatever duo you want in the Las Vegas Aces. Same with the New York Liberty, but they have the potential to completely do that. So I'm definitely excited to see how lethal it's going to be in the first year because I think it would be really lethal as we saw glimpses of it in the preseason game this week. Right now, we're going to go to Seattle. Skylar Diggins-Smith joins the squad. Neko Ogwumike joins the squad. Jewel Lloyd already there. Jordan Horston already there. This team is... you got to win, right? You got to win with this team. It's another really stacked team that you have going on that like went from looking pretty bad to looking really elite. And I think just like the Phoenix Mercury, I think they're in that tier. You got to make the semifinals. You have to be in the 14. For the expectations of teams, it has to be Phoenix, New York, Las Vegas, and Seattle, or all those teams failed that year. Right? Like, that needs to be the expectation because of what they've built. And there's age to these teams, so these teams aren't going to last for years and years and years. This is like next year or the year after, or what? Like this is this one we got to win. So I think Sky coming back. You know, she's been out a year, which can do anything to any athlete. But she looked really good in the first preseason game. I think she scored like 14 and had like 6 or something assists. So I'm not expecting much fall off, but you never know. As the season is long. It's even longer this year. I think they extended it, and it's like so. You know, we just have to see. But I have high hopes for him. I think I think it's going to be very impressive to see how these stars are going to gel with Sky and NECA and Jewel Lloyd and Rising Star and Horston. And I'm really, really excited to see just how good they are. I really am. And another one of the kind of mystery topics, I think, is Deladon like playing again. I think it was weird when she just didn't get signed in that big wave, and then she said, I'm going to sit out this year. So she obviously didn't want to go back to Washington, and I think it was just like ran out of options because, the whole roster thing, like, that's not an exception to players that have been around and been really good. A roster spot is roster spot, and there's only so many. And if she didn't fit in the piece of the puzzle for any of these teams immediately, then it might take a minute. And I don't know if maybe there's an injury or something if they try to sign her this year. I don't know the exact. I don't know if she's allowed to sign, honestly, but because I think there's an option on the table with her and the Mystics or something. So I think she has to wait till next year. But it's just interesting to see how that's going to play out. And I think as we see the landscape of the league change, I think it's going to become clear who needs a player like Deladon, right? She can still play at a high level, we know that. She just gets hurt a lot, and, stuff that happens with athletes as they get older. So that'll be interesting to keep our eyes on. Another team is the Atlanta Dream. And I kind of put them in, I think they should make the playoffs. I just don't know how far they could get, but they could get pretty far if we're not careful. And that is the Atlanta Dream, already with Ryan Howard. Then they signed Jordan Canada, Tina Charles to the Dream. They got a solid team going on there. Gray is already there. And I just think that they have pieces to be pretty dangerous. And I think if you're not careful, they can make a run. I don't know if I put them in the top echelon of teams, but I think they're a team you gotta keep an eye out for sure. Another team you have to be careful of because they might do a three-peat is the Las Vegas Aces, who, even though Candace Parker retired, they have a great chance to three-peat because they're just heads in everything over everyone else. Because you expect Asia Wilson to play at MVP level. You expect Kelsey Plum to play at MVP level. You expect Chelsea Gray to play at an elite level. And it's just at what point do you even try to see a weakness in this team? Because they're just so stacked. And with Jackie Young got that extension, she's getting better and better every year. That she's going to be an MVP level player. And it's just oh, man. There's not even much to talk about this team because they're just so good, right? The only thing I don't like about them is the rebrand, how they took the red out of it and they're just black and silver. I think that's lame. And then their special city, whatever they call it, edition, limited edition, is just the regular red that they had. I'm well, that's just your regular jersey that you should have kept. I don't know, man. That frustrated me. Then I'm kind of talk about the two teams, kind of running it back, but maybe adding some additions to the side with the Connecticut Suns and the Connecticut Sun and the Dallas Wings, and they're teams that have stayed at this middle ground where the Atlanta Dream are kind of coming to that middle ground, where with the Dallas Wings you have Satu, right? You got Arike Agumbawale, and then you're adding J.C. Sheldon to that as a guard. You want to see a sophomore jump from Maddie Siegrist, and I just think that the Wings are a team that can be very, very competitive and very, very good. But again, the league is so top heavy. I don't know who you bump out to say the Wings are going to go on a run, because it seems like they've been so close for 3 or 4 years now, and you're just. I think you expect Satu to make another leap, right? So it's if she turns to an MVP level player, so many MVP level players in this league, then watch out, right? And then a Connecticut Sun with DeWanna Bonner, Alyssa Thomas, they're just going to keep doing their thing. They're going to keep playing elite level, and you still have these elite role players around them, and they'll always stay relevant, I think, with those two. So I just don't know if they're going to crack like a top 4 in this league because of how stacked it is, you know? Which is why I'm thinking like maybe the Sky are making the playoffs. I don't know. It's just the league is so good. It's so exciting. And we need more teams so we can kind of spread this out a little bit. But it's such a good league. It's amazing. Then you have the Minnesota Lynx, who again is in like this echelon of like really good teams, but I can't see them getting to the top because they added like all of the Chicago Sky players from last year with like Courtney Williams and it's like and a bunch of other players, and it's just like it was frustrating for me to watch, but like so now they got a bunch of solid role players around Collier, around Diamond Miller, and they get Alyssa Pillai, who's gonna be a really good player, and it's like they're gonna be just right there too. It's really exciting. And then LA, I think we saw in the preseason game, it's going to take a little bit for them to kind of figure things out, which is why they probably won't have a great season this year. But, man, their future is bright with Cameron Brink, with Rakia Jackson, with Zaya Cook. And it's just like, and you have the vets like Dearica Hamby and Azure Stevens. And it's like, it looks like a really good roster. It's just there's just not a lot of cohesion going on right at this moment, and I think there's going to need some time to be really, really good. But I think they'll get there in due time. I really do. Kind of talked about the Liberty already, but I think they're just in that top 2 or 3 teams where you have Brianna Stewart, you have Jonquil Jones, you have Vandersloot, you have Sabrina as a 4th option there. When Sabrina's like your 3rd or 4th option, you're going to be pretty good scoring the ball. And I just think they lost last year, and they need to show that they have a chance to come back and win it. And I don't know, it's going to be tough. Last year was definitely the year they need to do that because it's going to be a lot harder to get to the finals, and I don't think they're at the level of eliteness that the Aces are in. I don't think they're at that level stacked anymore. And they're still really, really, really good. Like, really, really good. But it's going to be... We'll see. We'll see. I think going back to the Aces, an important thing is, like, how many of, like, really high-rated college players fell to them, like Daisha Fair going to the Aces. And it's like they can refuel and retool depending on how they see them fitting in, and it's gonna be hard to like make room for them. Like they drafted Katie Martin as well, and everyone's really excited about that. But I just don't know if there's gonna be spots, and I don't know if like that. It's another roster thing. I just don't know if that's gonna like they're gonna be able to crack the roster. But if they do, you got hidden gems in your on your team. It's gonna be impressive. Going back to DC, I think kind of wrapping it up with like Deladon leaving. You have Shakira Austin who's coming back from injury. Now Aaliyah Edwards coming in. And it's kind of like, okay, let's see if this is her team, right? And I think this is exciting. She's like the one rookie coming in where it's like, okay, this is your situation. We really don't got much else. Shakira Austin, I think you expect to take another leap. But, like, you need to step up, right? Because the playoffs, it was Natasha Cloud, no one else. Shakira Austin has injury questions, but like she's gonna be really good. So it's gonna be you and her, man. Your roster, and we're gonna see how they build around her, how she performs. It might be a rough year. It's probably gonna be a rough year. They're probably gonna be bottom of the league, but I think it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. And a fun little end thing, I think. When we look at the mascot game and see Ellie the Elephant being the undisputed top mascot in the league, I think we really need to talk about how other mascots need to step it up or how we need to scrap them all together and fix it. I'm talking to Chicago with the Sky Guy, which is just a man with armor on, and it's just like, we can't do better. We can't do better than that. I know there's a lot of people that have issues with him, and I feel like I agree. because you have Ellie the Elephant, who has dominated the mascot game. She's the Philly fanatic of women's sports, and it needs to change. And before I get upset, I'm going to end this video. Let me know what you think. How do you think your WNBA team is going to do? What's your WNBA team? Or is it? And tell me how they became your team. Or did you grow up in that city? Did you adopt them because your city doesn't have a team yet? Maybe. Tell me how. Tell me that story. All right. Peace.